The Murder House in Brighton. This is an account taken from an article in The Guardian dated 27th of May 2000. With its large gay community, celebrity residents and beachfront cafes, Brighton is regarded one of the most hippest, most laid-back towns in Britain. But a glimpse of its seamy underbelly emerged last week as campaigners offered a £50,000 reward to find the killers of a 19-year-old girl sucked into a world of drugs and depravity. The case of Katrina Taylor has focused attention on the increasing problems of Brighton and its crumbling estates. A short distance from homes of famous residents such as Zoe Ball, Chris Eubank and Heather Mills, Paul McCartney's new girlfriend, against the backdrop of dramatic increase in burglaries, muggings, shootings. Private investigators trying to find Taylor's killers last week revealed that they had received death threats as fly posters were put up around town calling for justice for a woman whose life was ruined by drugs. Katrina Taylor was found stabbed to death in a graveyard on July 1996. Despite a police inquiry and 2 Crown Court trials, no one has been found guilty of her murder. Campaigners believe this because of the local forces' failure to investigate the crime properly. They want a full investigation by the Police Complaints Authority. Last week they began distributing a list of Sussex officers who are accused of varying degrees of incompetence, from allegedly failing to investigate the background of the key witness to failing to respond to information about the whereabouts of the accused. The campaigners have announced evidence that links the murder to a fraud gang operating out of nearby Peacehaven and claim this is not being properly investigated. The murder attracted great publicity when it was discovered that the victim had taken part in a police murder reconstruction in 1986, posing as a 9-year-old Nicola Fellows, who had been found strangled in Brighton Park along with a friend. 10 years later, Katrina was struggling to bring up her baby daughter and fund her £200 a week heroin habit. Late in the evening of 8th of May 1996, she agreed to act as a lookout while her boyfriend Matty Laurie and friend John Cosham burgled a house belonging to Nisha Williams, the former girlfriend of a drug dealer. As well as stealing personal belongings, the thieves set fire to furniture and flooded 2 rooms. After using her contacts to find out who had been responsible, Williams formed a posse which rampaged through Brighton, hell-bent on revenge. Among the members of the gang were her ex-boyfriend Trevor Smith, and a Londoner obsessed with black culture who had a string of previous convictions. He called his flatmate Fergal Scollan, who had previous convictions for assault and actual bodily harm. With Smith, he had begun a large-scale operation growing super-strong skunk cannabis. William's brother Simon was also in the posse. Laurie could not be found. He had already been arrested for the robbery, so the posse tracked down Cosham. He was beaten and stabbed in both legs with a screwdriver. A friend who was found with him was stabbed in the face, beaten with a hammer and repeatedly kicked in the head. The posse then moved on to track down Katrina Taylor. They forced their way into her family home and attacked her sister, but Katrina was nowhere to be found. The following day, Katrina was arrested for her part in the burglary. Detectives asked magistrates to remand her in custody, but she was granted bail to look after her 8-month-old daughter. Nearly 2 months later, Simon Williams spotted her outside a hotel. He persuaded her to go with him to 77 Centurion Road, the council house to which Nisha Williams had moved. Williams called Smith and Scollin, who rushed back to Brighton from London. The evening began with a shouting match. At one point, a knife was held to Katrina's throat, and she agreed to pay for the damage caused by the burglary at the rate of £10 per week for unemployment benefits. At 11:15 p.m, screaming was heard in a graveyard a short walk from the Centurion Road. Katrina's body was found the next morning by a man walking his dog. According to the pathologist's report, she had been held from behind and stabbed from the front by either one or two people. Within weeks, a team of 50 detectives and 15 forensic experts had gathered 400 exhibits, including the murder weapon, which Simon Williams had disposed of, down a drain in Peacehaven. 150 statements. Nisha and Simon Williams, along with Smith and Scollin, were arrested and charged with murder. At the trial of Lewis Crown Court in June 1997, Nisha and Simon Williams claimed that Katrina had left the flat that evening with Scollin and Smith, who later returned saying she was dead. Scollin and Smith claimed she had left with the Williamses, and the exact opposite was true. Both men said they believed Simon Williams had killed Katrina, and they had gone into hiding. Simon Williams admitted trying to dispose of the murder weapon. Nisha was found guilty of false imprisonment, but she and her brother were cleared of murder. Smith and Scollin were found guilty. Smith and Scollin launched an immediate appeal, claiming the judge had misdirected the jury over aspects of the evidence. The Court of Appeal ordered a retrial which began at the Old Bailey in October 1999. For legal reasons, Nisha and Simon Williams did not give evidence. Lawyers for Smith and Scollin successfully argued that there was no case to answer, and the judge directed both men to be acquitted of the murder because of insufficient evidence. Scollin had a charge of false imprisonment dropped. Smith admitted the same charge and was sentenced to 30 months, but walked free because of time served. Katrina's mother, Kathy, told The Observer, "I am disgusted how this has turned out. It has destroyed my faith in the justice system and the police. My daughter was stabbed to death and no one has been made to pay. I won't rest until they are." Kathy will meet campaigners this week to discuss options for moving forward. A spokesperson for Sussex Police said, "The police thoroughly investigated this murder. The file remains open, and if anyone has information, we would urge them to come forward." New evidence was also posted on a site called Mr. X Investigations, exclusively presented by Mr. X Investigations. New evidence on the Katrina Taylor unsolved murder in 1996 has been uncovered, which gives Sussex police grounds to reopen her case. Katrina Taylor's 1996 unsolved murder remains one of the nation's most notorious unsolved murders, and has a connection to Brighton's equally notorious murders of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway in 1986. Exclusively, the investigation reveals a connection between the murder of Katrina Taylor in 1996 and the sabotage of the independent parliamentary political campaign of Matt Taylor in 2015. Brighton Camptown general election, with police forces across the country always prepared to reinvestigate cold cases dependent on new evidence. Mr. X Investigations is taking a fresh look at the 1996 unsolved murder of Katrina Taylor in Brighton, UK. Uncovering a relationship between the cold cases of the 1986 Babes in the Woods murder of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway and the 1996 murder of Katrina Taylor both remain the nation's most notorious murder cases. made them more shocking, with the backstories of both cases revealing insights into the more shadowy and criminal side of Brighton's life. What is the connection? Aged 9 years old, Brighton-born Katrina Taylor played Nicola Fellows in the BBC Crime Watch reconstruction of her final moments in 1986. She went on to be brutally murdered 10 years later. Both the Babes in the Woods murders and the Katrina Taylors remain unsolved, with their killers yet to be brought to justice. Another connection which runs concurrent with the reinvestigations of all cold cases in the introduction of new evidence, with the advancement of forensic evidence instrumental in the retrial of Russell Bishop for the murder of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway, of which he was acquitted in 1987, and the new evidence that prompted an unsuccessful search for Susie Lamplugh, who was thought to be buried in a garden with a connection to the chief suspect John Cannon, aka Mr. Rick Kipper. Mr. X Investigations presents new evidence of the fifth man involved in the murder of Katrina Taylor. Katrina Taylor, aged 19 and mother to 8-year-old baby girl, was brutally murdered on the 4th of July 1996, killed by 5 stabs to the heart. Events leading up to her murder began on 8th of May, when Katrina acted as a lookout for a burglary at the home of Nisha Williams. Katrina Taylor's boyfriend, Matty Lurie, and his friend John Cosham broke in and stole a number of electrical items, including a stereo. Supporting a heroin addiction costing up to £200 a day, Katrina would have been doing whatever she could to finance a habit, which was slowly destroying her life and the lives of her loved ones. They returned to Nisha's property later to steal the washing machine, and in doing so they caused a flood to 2 rooms and set fire to furniture. Nisha Williams, a mother to 2 young children with Trevor Smith, was forced to move in with her brother Simon Williams at his place in 77 Centurion Road in central Brighton. Centurion Road is metres from Brighton's oldest church and graveyard at St Nicholas Church. Nisha was furious, as was London-based Trevor Smith, who was more concerned about the danger to his children from the fire. It's important to note that neither Nisha or her kids were at the property at the time of the burglary. Nisha returned to her property the next day and was heard to vow, "Whoever did this is dead." According to court transcripts, we learned that Nisha's contacted Trevor Smith, who promptly formed a posse of 7 men who were intent on revenge, rampaging through Brighton, hell-bent on finding those responsible. The posse was made up of Simon Williams, his brother Jason Williams, Nisha Williams, Trevor Smith, Fergal Scotland, and 2 other men called Wallace and Fleming. Having first burst into the family home of the Taylors and having attacked Katrina's sister Kerry, they eventually tracked down John Cosham, who was severely beaten and stabbed in both legs with a screwdriver. Matty Lurie managed to evade capture, having already been arrested and detained by police for a separate robbery charge. Katrina Taylor was next on their list, and nothing was going to stand in their way. Nisha Williams didn't report the burglary to the police, but Kerry Taylor did, and the following day Katrina was arrested for her part in it. Sussex police detectives asked magistrates to remand her in custody, but she was granted bail to look after her baby daughter. The night of the murder, it was 2 months later, on the 4th of July 1996, that Katrina's luck had run out. She was spotted sitting on the steps of Brighton Seafront Hotel by Simon Williams, who at the time was in his car with his girlfriend Sarah Jackson. According to eyewitnesses, Simon stopped his car, got out, and Katrina ran into the hotel. The hotel's manageress recalls Katrina running in saying, "That black guy is going to kill me." Simon Williams entered the hotel and grabbed hold of Katrina. All the while, Katrina pleading Simon not to hurt her. "Don't hurt me. I know you're going to hurt me." Evidence of the witness intimidation now rears its ugly head, with the fact that in her police statement, the manageress said Williams had dragged Katrina to his car while giving evidence at the trial. She said Katrina had gone to his car under her own steam. Sarah Jackson revealed in court that Katrina kept saying, "Don't do anything to me," and repeating the claim that she got into the car under her own volition. Regardless, the manner of which she got into the car, the truth was the game was up and Katrina had been found. According to evidence given in court, both Katrina and Simon Williams arrived at 77 Centurion Road at about 6:15 p.m. Within a short time of Nisha setting eyes on Katrina, she rang Trevor Smith, who just happened to be on his way back to London with Fergal and Scollin. They had got as far as East Croydon when the call came through and immediately disembarked to catch the next train back to Brighton. While Smith and Scollin travelled back to Brighton, and according to Sarah Jackson's evidence, there were angry words said between Nisha and Katrina, as you expect there would. Katrina admitted to having sold Nisha's stereo and admitted to have acted as lookout while her home was burgled. It was agreed that Katrina would pay £10 a fortnight out of her gyro check, and according to Sarah Jackson's, tensions rise. Sadly, events were set to escalate to take on a sinister turn. Trevor Smith and Fergal Scollin arrived back at 77 Centurion Road at about 7:30. Sarah Jackson described them as hostile. Revealed via her evidence in court, she said that she heard Nisha come upstairs and say through the door, "Trevor has got a knife out." Sarah Jackson left 77 Centurion Road at about 8:15, after which Simon Williams drove her home. Once Simon Williams returned to 77 Centurion Road, it was agreed by all parties that the only people in the house were Katrina Taylor, Simon Williams, Nisha Williams, Trevor Smith and Fergal Scollin. There is no direct evidence to suggest what occurred between this time and the death of Katrina. Only the killers of Katrina knew what happened that fateful night. The fact Smith, Scollin and two Williamses were charged with false imprisonment proves that Katrina was held at 77 Centurion Road against her will. The bail conditions called for Katrina to return to her hostel in Brighton by 11 p.m. The fact she didn't return implies she wasn't free to return at that time. We can only surmise that Katrina made a run for it, waited for an opportunity to escape, and once it came, she took it. She would have run for the door and ran as far as she could, but with Smith, Scollin and Williams in hot pursuit, she would have only reached the graveyard of St Nicholas Church before being caught and murdered in cold blood. Cold-blooded murder. Katrina's body was found the next morning by a man walking his dog. According to the pathologist's report, there were two possible scenarios as to how she was killed. One, she had been held by a person from behind while another stabbed her from the front. Or two, one tall, strong person had held her from behind with his left arm and stabbed her in the front with his right arm. The pathologist concluded she must have been restrained because there were very few defensive wounds on her hands and her arms. There would have been little or no blood staining on her attackers or on the knife. Katrina Taylor was dead, murdered in the grounds of St Nicholas Church in central Brighton. Time of death was estimated to be 10:30 p.m. or between that and 3:30 a.m. Her body was found at 8:30 a.m. on the 5th of July, and there was evidence of a disturbance, including screaming in the churchyard at around 11:15 p.m. the previous evening. The pathologist's evidence was that Katrina had been stabbed 5 times with a knife, and her death had been almost instantaneous, following 2 stab wounds to the heart. The aftermath. At about midnight on the night of the murder, Trevor Smith and Fergal Scollin had missed the train back to London. As a result, they persuaded Simon Williams to drive them to London Victoria, where after they caught a night bus to their home in Cricklewood, from which they caught a taxi to Purley Avenue, where their girlfriends lived, Simon Williams returned to Brighton after dropping them off at Victoria, introducing a new player to the picture, Trevor Smith's girlfriend Jennifer Loanu. She evidenced her diary to the trial, purporting to show that Trevor Smith had spent the whole evening of the 4th of July with her, evidently in an attempt to give Smith an alibi. She went on to give evidence that both Trevor Smith and Fergal Scollin spent the weekend of the 6th to the 8th of July at her home, were subdued. On the evening of 9th of July, Smith and Scollin asked Jennifer Lono if they could use her father's flat. Having agreed, they laid low until they were arrested by the police on the 24th of July. The police had raided Smith and Scollin's home in Cricklewood on the 9th of July and found the place empty, though they did find cannabis plants, which was the reason both Smith and Scollin gave as reason for hiding out at another property. According to Jennifer Loanu, both Smith and Scollin had a conversation of going to Cyprus, asking whether an extradition from Cyprus was a possibility. Back in Brighton, Simon Williams returned to Brighton during the early hours of the 5th of July, having dropped both Smith and Scollin at Victoria Station in London. New evidence, according to the new witness, who wasn't called to give evidence in any trial, David Nielsen from Peacehaven recalls Simon Williams returning to the top flat of 318 South Coast Road in Peacehaven. In a sworn statement by David Nielsen, dated the 7th of February 2000, he claims that the Friday PM 5th July, Simon Williams was in the flat. He was always very noisy when in the flat, which I will add that at no time ever had any furniture or carpet, but on that day he continually walked the entire length of the flat. He then went outside several times, slamming the front door. I was getting agitated as to the unnecessary disturbance. My first thought was that he was waiting for a delivery, which had not arrived on time, but because of his actions, I took special note, as he did several things out of character. He walked around the front of the building and into Cairo Avenue. He then sat by the drain where the knife was found. This is a back road entrance to the building, and when I first looked, I expected to see a delivery vehicle. He then went back into the flat, making more noise. I heard him talking on the telephone. A while later, he repeated his actions of going to the area of the drain. This is why his actions of that day stuck in my mind. The fact that Simon Williams went to Peacehaven on the day after Katrina's murder churns up a number of questions about what Williams was doing, and why he went to Peacehaven. These questions are answered by the testimony of David Nielsen, but never put it forward into the trials. We must remember that within weeks of Katrina's murder, a team of 50 detectives and 15 forensic experts had gathered 400 exhibits, including the murder weapon, which Simon Williams had disposed of down a drain in Peacehaven, and 150 statements. The police found the murder weapon because of David Nielsen witnessed Simon Williams acting suspiciously around the drain near Cairo Avenue in Peacehaven. The fifth man is crime lord called Mark Slade, aka Marcel Sulk. Simon Williams worked for Mark Slade by managing the post deliveries and pickups from the property of 318 South Coast Road, Peacehaven. If David Nielsen was called to give evidence, the jury would have heard that Mark Slade's gang were using the flat above Mr. Nielsen, top flat 318 South Coast Road, Peacehaven, East Sussex, for varying types of criminal activities from credit card fraud to drugs. According to Mr. Nielsen, Slade openly boasted of having a string of criminal convictions, including blackmail, deception, handling stolen goods, actual bodily harm, firearms, burglary, and drug dealing. Simon Williams worked for Slade as the pickup man, signing for goods delivered and answering the telephone. Labelled the murder house due to its connection to the murder, the upstairs flat was used as a base of major criminal activity, the details of which have been reported to Sussex Police by David Nielsen on a number of occasions. It will be argued that if the crimes reported by David Nielsen, Simon Williams would not have been free to contribute to the murder of Katrina Taylor. The truth remains, nonetheless, Sussex Police dismissed without investigation these criminal activities by crime lord Mark Slade, even before the murder of Katrina Taylor. As Mr. Nielsen comments, no action or inquiry was made, which is unfathomable, considering the seriousness of the events surrounding the building. Who is Mark Slade, aka Marcel Sulk? As reported in The Guardian by Martin Bright and Tony Thompson on the 25th of August 2002, Mark Slade was a notorious fraudster with a reputation as the new king of the slum landlords. His modus operandi was to seize properties owned by other people by using the civil courts to repossess flats for non-payment or nominal ground rents, usually of only around £50. He'd receive ground rent checks from his leaseholders but not cash them, exposing the loophole, giving him the lawful authority to break into flats, change their locks and throw out their contents. He effectively obtained properties at no cost, which he sold on, pocketing the cash, making pure profit, hence the name of one of his companies, among the array of other imaginatively named companies, including Deadly Limited and Grim Limited. Sulk once bragged to lawyers representing the Halifax Bank, "You may be good at repossessing houses, but my people are better." Thank you very much for watching, and for those who've subscribed, I also thank you very much. Any support is much appreciated. I hope that I can continue to provide you with some useful entertainment and also some information you can learn from. Did you enjoy that? If you did, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the notifications icon so you can see when I've done another video. And
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
Until next time, I am Sir Shudder. See you soon. Be safe, be cool.